Previously on Funny Science Fiction.
I dreamed about playing basketball professionally until I finally woke up and realized I'm a slow white Jewish guy.
Hello and welcome to the Funny Science Fiction Podcast.
Podcast where the profanity's been filtered and the jokes probably should have been too.
Our guest today is the New York Times bestselling author Dayton Ward. Dayton, meet Drayton. Drayton, meet Dayton. This won't be confusing at all.
No, shouldn't be. I know who I am.
Now, what I was surprised to find out about, and you guys might be too, and that many people may not know, is that Dayton Ward is a self-defense expert. He holds a black belt in the new age martial arts of Kirk Fu.
This is correct.
Maybe not a black belt, but he has written a manual of Kirk Fu moves. That's right, a fully illustrated book available on DaytonWard.com for only $14.99. Hint, hint, hint.
Only I thought to bring a copy to the show, but it won't show up on the green screen. Okay.
Push it forward, you might be able to see it.
What was it about the magnificence of Kirk's fighting style that made you step back and say, you know what, this is what I need to write a book about? But even more importantly than that, what fighting move shown in the book will you be employing that fateful night when you're cornered in a dark alley?
Oh, well, the idea for the book came about while I was working on another book for that publisher, Inside Editions. I was working on a travel guide to the planet Vulcan, which is exactly what you think it is.
Nice.
And they came to me with that idea, and I ran with it. And while I was finishing up that book, I had this idea of pitching a parody of self-defense manuals like you'd see in the military. But I wanted to focus on Kirk Fu. And I had written an article for StarTrek.com about my 10 favorite Kirk fighting moves years ago.
That's awesome.
So I pitched it to my editor, and I was half joking and half hoping, that kind of thing. In other words, I was prepared to laugh it off as a joke if he told me no, so that my feelings wouldn't be hurt. But
no, I wasn't serious. No, it's good.
Yeah, I didn't really mean that. And then he actually went for the idea, and he said, "That's great. I can't wait. We should try to do that." So I wrote up a formal pitch, and submitted it, and then CBS approved it, and they gave me a green light. And so I started diagramming Kirk's moves by rewatching the shows. And
There you go.
I gotta see this book.
Yeah.
figuring out how to break it down into step 1, step 2, step 3, and then they partnered me with an illustrator, Christian Cornea, who just flat out knocked it out of the park.
Yes.
It's because my pitch was I wanted all of the text to be written straight. So no jokes, no snark, no nothing. I wanted to be uber serious, and I wanted the illustrations to convey the humor and the absurdity of it. So it worked fine. Christian totally knocked it out of the park.
That is awesome.
The little bit I saw of it on your website, just full disclosure, I'm not a huge Star Trek fan. But
Well, you're in the right business then.
Yeah. Yeah, probably not. But I honestly, I would buy that book. I think it's hysterical. The little bit I saw of it, the illustrations that were drawn for it, totally sell it.
Thank
Totally
you.
sell it.
The idea is that it's a gift book. It's humor. It's meant for the casual fan. It's the kind of book your grandma would buy for you when she's shopping for your birthday and she knows you like Star Trek, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
I wanted to be able to show up any.
Dayton would like this one.
Yeah, there you go. I really want it. That's the way they marketed it as a gift book. It's a 6x6 or 7x7. So that's the idea. It's a humor book. You find it in the humor section at your bookstore.
Great.
Yeah.
I think it's hysterical. I think it's honestly, I think it's something I'm going to have to get for myself and take a little bit more of a look at.
It's definitely a conversation starter when people walk in and look at your bookshelves and go,
People on our webpage are gonna love that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll make sure we share it there.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, as I've told every author that who's come onto the show, I'm not a creative writer. I can write factual, functional things, no problem. I'm always impressed by how the creative author's mind works and functions or doesn't function, as the case may
Are
be.
you talking about me again?
I am. I didn't think you'd pick up on it that quickly. But I wonder, with an established universe such as Star Trek, do you feel that it constricts or promotes your creativity? Because after all, you write about established characters in the Trekkerverse, such as Jean-Luc Picard and James T. Kirk and all these other guys. How do you feel that affects your creativity?
I don't think it constrains it. I think it focuses it. You're working within the rules established within a universe, but you do that if you're writing your own made up universe or your made up fantasy world or whatever. You create the rules by which that universe, exists, and then you have to write your stories to conform to what you have created yourself. I just didn't create the universe that I'm working in, but I'm familiar with it. I've loved it all my life, and I don't view it as a constraint. I view it as a challenge. How can I bring you, the Star Trek fan? I know not you personally, because apparently you don't like Star Trek, but I forgive you. And
the rest of us do.
so for the people who follow this stuff and watch the shows and they've read the books, what is it I can do to bring something new to them? What can I do that hasn't been necessarily done before or not done quite that way before? When you're writing for characters like Kirk and Spock and the crew of the Enterprise, and you set it during the time frame of the original show, you can't kill them off. You can't really introduce any major changes to them. So it's the ride that has to be worth it. It's got to be worth getting on the roller coaster. And if I can introduce a little something that you maybe didn't know about those characters before you read the book, that's cool too. But you're always working on the auspices of CBS's good graces. They're the ones who review and approve all this stuff. And for the most part, I've had a very favorable relationship for going on 20 years now, working with the people who Star Trek. So they let me get away with it, and then they let me goof off on Twitter and be an idiot on Facebook and stuff.
Because I have to imagine that's a pretty tightly controlled universe and tightly overseen, because it's such an iconic brand, really.
That's really, they are very, the people who work in the licensing group at CBS, they are fans themselves, and they're not just casual fans, they're hardcore. I mean, it's hard for you to get something over on them when it comes to the lore or the mythology, if you will. They know their stuff. And if somebody fails, the next person in line will catch the gap. They'll fill that gap. So they're fans, but they want everything to work. So they work with us to, if we do something that they think doesn't quite ring true for the characters, they'll lead us back to the road. But it's never a negative relationship. It's always very collaborative. They want every book to do well. They want every comic to do well. So it's been a lot of fun. They give us a lot of leeway too. They give us, at this point, there's an air of trust, or there's a level of trust where they know that, so-and-so is writing a book. Well, all right, he's not going to screw things up too badly. They're giving Ward another book. He should be okay.
The last one didn't hurt us too badly. We'll
the last one didn't tank that badly. We can give another one.
There you go. So a non-sci-fi question for you. I understand that you're originally from Florida and a lifelong Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. Is that true?
This is true.
That is true. Okay. Now, as a football fan, I want to tease you about the orange creamsicle uniforms of the 80s and early 90s. However, as a Detroit Lions fan, I'm going to sit down and shut up.
There you go. That's a good move.
Right? So
what's the question in there?
The question is how excited were you when the news broke that the Bucs got the GOAT? And for the non-football fans, we're talking about Tom Brady. And then secondly, you got Gronk, Rob Gronkowski, his favorite receiver when he was with the Patriots. So how excited were you? And then secondly, what's it like to be a fan of a team with a functional front office?
That's a good question. And it's a relatively recent thing too. There was a lot of time there were a lot of years there where the Bucs did not have a functional front office. I've been a Bucs fan since day one, since the day they announced Tampa was getting a team. I was like 8 when that happened. My dad and I had season tickets. We were there for 0-26. I wore a bag on my head. I used to actually, when I was a teenager, I worked at the stadium, walking up and down the stand selling concessions. I was one of those guys. So that was how I earned. That was my first summer job, was working at the stadium doing soccer games and football games.
That's cool.
So long suffering Buccaneers fan.
Yeah.
When we heard that they were coming, that they were going to get Brady, I've made my share of Brady and Patriot jokes. Don't get me wrong; he's been the butt of many a joke.
Yeah.
But once he puts on the Bucs uniform, he's a Buck, and I'm like, okay, he knows how to win a game. We know this,
right?
He knows how to win several. And then the Gronkowski thing, I was kind of shocked by that. I didn't think he would come out of retirement, but somehow they sweetened that deal enough for him to come back to work. And so far, I know this has been a weird year, and it's been a weird football season, and sports has been just kind of sideways, but I think it's starting to come together a little bit down there. If that last game was any indication.
Yeah,
So
it's starting to look like it is.
it'd be, I'm not getting too excited. I'm not getting too puffed up. I'm not, the idea of them being able to play the Super Bowl down in Tampa would be all right, but I'm not getting too carried away just yet.
Just yet. Understood.
Got a long way to go.
Well, I had a question for you. Every superhero has an origin story, right? And I watched a lot of your interviews, and they all kind of cover your origin story. So I'm not going to go there. I think
Okay.
lots of interviews, if people want to see that. That's great. It's very interesting. I recommend they do. But I really got thinking about superheroes. And do you have a favorite superhero or a superhero franchise that you like? You ever?
I'm a Batman guy.
You're a Batman?
Yeah, I've always been a Batman guy. I mean, I've waffled between other ones, but I think the one that's consistently the one I go back to is Batman. I remember watching, back when I was a kid, Batman was Adam West in reruns and Super Friends on Saturday mornings. And at the time, at that age, I was cool. And then, I read Batman comics, so I got to read some of the more serious stuff, like the stuff Denny O'Neil would write, or stuff Neil Adams would do. And I'm trying to square these in my little 9-year-old head. Like, I don't understand how these are the same guy. Where's the Kapow and the Riddler and the tilted rooms and stuff.
I had the lunch.
Yeah. And then I went away from comics for a while, and then I was living in California, and that was right about the time that Dark Knight Returns hit stands for the first time. So I kind of grabbed it because it looked interesting, and that hooked me right back in. I've been reading comics ever since.
Nice.
And so then the 89 Batman movie came along, and if you were around in 89, people were insane for Batman that summer. It was Batman and everything else. And I had just come home from being overseas that summer, so I didn't get to see the movie until like a month after everybody else had already seen it 3 times.
Oh,
And it was still packing theaters when I got back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
So
Crazy.
Batman's my guy, always has been.
Great. Okay, so our show,
We'll accept that one.
our group, there you go. You're going to take that? All right, good. Our show is always focused on what's fun and funny in science fiction. And when it comes to funny writing, do you have an author that you've read that is like a go-to inspiration for you when you try to inject humor into a story?
That's a good question. I don't know that there's any one particular writer, but I do, and I don't even know if it's necessarily a science fiction writer. I like the comedy written by people like Larry Gelbart, who was, so much of MASH. Aaron Sorkin can be very funny when he wants to be, and also very dramatic. So people like that, because I don't know that I've ever written anything that's just outright funny. I try to inject humor, but I can't claim to be a humor writer. I can be a smart aleck, but I don't know that I can necessarily come across as being a comedian. So I look to people like that, and people like John Scalzi, who injects a lot of humor and levity into his work.
Yeah.
I don't know that I go to them consciously, but they are people that I think of when you ask that question.
Oh, good.
It's other-
Great. I know most of these podcast interviews have some cringeworthy questions at times. So aside from this question, what's the worst question you've ever been asked in an author interview? And if it was one of Tim's just now, it's okay to tell us. He's got, he can handle it.
I don't know. I mean, other than the usual stale questions, which is like, where do you get your ideas from? That kind of thing. I do get kind of
Dayton. Where do you get your ideas from?
Yeah, I have a club that gives me a book or a box that drops them off every day. It's like Idea Crate. So,
That's a good idea.
I guess just the usual, the questions that I've been asked 1,000 times when I know they're going to ask me, like, how did you get started in writing, or how did you become a Star Trek fan? Or usually because I write a lot of Star Trek, I get a lot of Star Trek questions. What's your favorite episode? What's your favorite ship? What's your favorite captain? Who would you want to be and I'm like, it's not a way of life. It's entertainment. I don't imagine myself on the bridge of the Enterprise. Well, not much. I mean, I might have. But those are the kinds of questions that I really don't have much to say about, because I'm like, we could talk about favorite episodes, but that it gets kind of boring after a while.
Right.
And it changes too. The question will change. The answer will change every time you.
Exactly. I noticed from your Wikipedia page that you're a big fan of the band Rush. Is that correct?
Yes.
So is your favorite Geddy Lee song Take Off to the Great White North with Bob and Doug?
The funny thing is, I think I heard that song. I heard that song before I became a Rush fan. And I knew who Rush was. And when I was a kid, I knew who Rush was, because the radio would play the same 3 songs.
Yeah.
And I knew who Geddy Lee was because they would always say it when they introed the song on the radio, that it's Rush's Geddy Lee. I did not become a Rush fan until I was stationed overseas, and my roommate, who's a huge music fan, every Sunday would crank these giant speakers that everybody bought in the 80s. The ones that were so big you had to live in another room. And he would crank his stereo all day on Sunday, and he'd open up the windows, he'd open up the doors, and every Sunday was a different band, and he would play everything he had. And one Sunday it was Rush. And so by the end of that Sunday, I was a convert. I was, the Holy Trinity, Geddy, Alex, Neil for life. And so the first concert my wife, who was then my fiance, and I went to was a Rush concert. This was back in 1990 or whatever. And we have not missed a concert. We had not missed a concert ever since. Sometimes we would travel to other cities and catch them in different places we wanted to go, like Vegas or down in Florida.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Good time.
Nice.
Oh, great fun.
So I don't think you can talk about Star Trek without actually thinking, at least for a moment, about the holodeck and how cool that would be to be dropped in the middle of a story, to actually feel things around you, smell them, like to have that visceral of an experience, in just like that technology is just insane, right? So I don't know if you've been asked this before, but could you tell me what you would want to do on a holodeck and keep Deanna Troi and 7 and 9 out of it, please?
I would like an environment where I could sleep uninterrupted for 8 hours at a time. Can we have that?
I mean, I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, so I feel
like,
there.
yeah. I'm like, I
It's the
can't remember a
dream.
time. I can't remember a time when my daughters weren't talking.
Right?
Things like that. Yeah, I can't remember the last time I had 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep. No,
Just
I mean,
sleeping. Just sleeping. I would like to be
Oh,
unconscious during those moments on the holodeck. Thanks.
I guess if it was a technology available to us today,
Yeah.
I
Put it
would
that
want to travel somewhere that I had never been on Earth, obviously. So someplace over in Europe or someplace down under, like I've never been to Australia. I've never been to Scotland. I've never been to, Ireland or anything like that. I would probably do that. Or I would just find that beach on Fiji, and that would be my 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep. And I'd put my hand up and somebody would periodically put a drink in it.
So
It's a
do you
solid
see your-
plan.
do you see yourself, when that technology comes out, 3 years from now, as you know it will, do you see yourself switching over to a holodeck writer instead?
I have no idea. Yeah, that'd be fun. Writing a holo program. That'd be
Yeah.
pretty cool. I mean, I know they have the the Oculus.
It's not the same.
I don't know. I've never tried one. And
It's
for me, it's the same reason I don't have an Xbox within easy reach of where I work.
Mm.
Because if I had that technology, I would never get anything done.
Yeah.
I would just-
that's me.
I would just play
This-
games all day. I mean, we
this-
have an Xbox. It's upstairs. My daughters play. And
I'm
I just
tapping
look
on
at it and go, I can't sit here. I've got to go work. I've got to go
Yep.
be a productive adult. I've got to go be an
Yep.
adult.
Gotta go do some adulting.
It's right there.
That really
What,
sucks.
Tim?
Tim's
So yeah, for
My
the same reason,
Xbox
if a
is
holodeck
right
was
there.
to be installed, yeah, that'd be the same.
Yeah.
That'd be in a holodeck. I'd just be inside the holodeck, playing some kind of stupid holodeck game
Yeah,
until
exactly.
dinner.
Yeah. And that's seriously the same thing with me. I had an Oculus in the office and stuff, and I played it quite a bit. And I was just like, you know what? I got to sell this thing. I just sold it, moved on. I was like,
I literally have a Star Trek arcade game in my office, in the corner of my office, and the only reason I don't play it as much as I used to is because it doesn't work as well as it used to, and I need to get it repaired. But there was a time there where, like, if I'm taking a break from writing, I would totally fire it up and play a few rounds on that, from an old 80s style arcade game. It was one of the first things I bought when I bought our first house.
Nice.
Like, I'm totally buying this thing. First piece of furniture that went in my office was a stupid arcade game. And my wife has informed me that that is the casket when I die.
Great.
That's awesome.
I think your wife and my wife might actually get along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
She's like, all that crap, as much as I can fit in there is going in there with you. So, all right.
yeah.
So you've obviously done a lot of thinking about how various characters in Star Trek would react in certain situations. Right? That's
Okay.
kind of a no-brainer, right?
I sense the trap coming, but okay.
So I want to ask, what character do you connect with the most? But also, which one do you just struggle to really understand? Like, oh, why would they do that? But yet that's them. That's what they do. Like anything like that.
I seem to have an easy time writing Kirk and Picard in particular. I don't know why. I don't claim any special understanding of the character. I guess because there's there's a pseudo military mindset to either one of them. I guess I can identify with them. Same, with lesser extent with Riker and some of the other characters. The ones that I struggle with sometimes are usually like Worf and not so much Spock, but Worf in particular. Klingons are always an interesting way, an interesting challenge to write because there's a stereotype about Klingons and you're always trying to defy the stereotype. So when I have a book that's Klingon heavy and I have different types of Klingons in it, I always try to introduce different personality quirks and different just things to defy the stereotype so that they're not all the same. We're all about honor. We're all about glory. There's only so much of that you can do. And it's sort of like writing a political storyline, which we did for a while there, where it seemed like every book was some sort of political angle. I'm like, I don't really like politics. I try to be engaged about politics and real world issues, but I don't like writing about it. And so when a story drives that, and then you have to deal with the characters in these situations, I'm just like, I hate this. This is not what I wanted. This is not what I signed up for.
Right?
Yeah.
This was not in the brochure. And so I do struggle with characters like Worf because I want to do something other than, I want to do something like they did with him in DS9, where they really fleshed him out and they really gave him a background that just sort of pushed back against what you think of when you think about Klingons. So that's an example.
Okay. Yeah. No, that makes tons of sense.
Voice.
So you've won a number of awards. You've been nominated 6 times, won twice for the Scribe Award, the International Association of Media and Tie-in Writers. Through all that, you've had ups and downs, right? Who hasn't?
I would say so. Yeah, we all have.
So what have you, or can you think to a moment that you found actually out of all that most fulfilling for you? And then also I'd like to know what's the most grueling thing for you about what you've done, what you've accomplished?
What's the grueling one?
Yeah, both. I want to know what's been most fulfilling, what's been most kind of grueling, what's been the thing that's...
Well, the most fulfilling one is the relationships I've made, the friends I've made, other writers, other fans, going to conventions. You meet people on social media, then you get to put a face to them. They tell you they like your book. You have a nice moment. You get to interact with them on social media a lot, and we have. My deal with social media is I try not to make it about marketing me. It's just I'm out there on social media being another idiot on social media. I just happen to be a guy that writes stuff that other people read.
Perfect for our group.
But I enjoy the relationships. I like the opportunities are fun. I love working Star Trek. I'm a lifelong fan, so being able to work closely with people who make Star Trek is kind of a dream job. It's really hard to call it work some days. Yeah. In fact, there are days when I sit back and I go, I can't believe they're paying me to do this. This is so ridiculous. My guidance counselor completely owes me an apology. And my mother, who used to tell me, I don't understand why you watch that crap. It'll never amount to anything.
Right?
Look at me now, Mama.
Look at me now, Dad. So, and I never, don't get me wrong. I did not see myself in this line of work. I was a software developer, and I thought that was going to be my life until I've, had my midlife crisis and went off and became a park ranger or something. So, I kind of backed my way into this whole writing career turned consultant turned Star Trek guru person thing. So I don't know how you put that on a resume.
I think you were just like that.
It's really difficult to explain to normal functioning adults what I do for a living. Some days.
Right?
I've never met one of those. So.
Right.
Yeah. As far as the grueling part, writing, it's hard. Writing is hard, right? There are days when your brain just doesn't want to do it. It doesn't want to sit down. Your brain turns to mush. All of a sudden, you're interested in recataloging all your DVDs by the last name of the grip that movie. You know, it's like, and there's the Deadliest Catch Marathon and all that stuff that it shows that I could not have cared less about a minute ago are now the greatest thing ever because it keeps me from writing.
Right.
And then you still have to put all that aside and do it. I mean, you just have to get whatever I have to get done that day has to be done, because if I don't do it, then it's twice as much tomorrow or whatever. There are just days when it's hard, particularly this year. This year is weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I work at home anyway, but at least before the apocalypse, you had I'm like, I can go on vacation. I can go to someplace. We can take the kids out for a movie or the mall or whatever. And you can't do any of that.
Yeah.
So
It's tough.
Yeah,
it's insane.
I've started this new saying I've been talking to myself about regarding discipline. I've started to say that a lack of discipline is like going in debt to your future.
That's a good way to put that.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so true. Because if I make all these excuses as to why I can't do that thing in the moment, such as put this stuff away once I'm done with it or whatever, it's like going in debt to your future. Right.
I'm
We're
trying
not even
to
gonna
teach
talk
my
about
kids that. Yeah.
It's
We're
hard.
not even going to
I'm
talk
trying to-
about how
my
much I owe
kids
my
are-
future.
My kids are, they're learning at home for school right now. They're home full time doing school. And I've been trying to instill them with good habits, good discipline. It's like, you don't lay around in your pajamas all day.
Right.
I've been working at home for 12 years at this point, 12, 13 years. And I still, every day I get up, I get dressed, I do the morning routine. I separate myself from couch potato Dayton, who's a very prominent presence in my life. Don't get me wrong. But I there's a mental switch that flips when I get dressed and get out of my sleep clothes and I go to work. I come down to my office. There's a commute. It's 17 stairs down the friggin' thing. And so, but I tell them the same thing. I'm like, don't sit in your bed and do your schoolwork. Get up, downstairs, get dressed. You work before you play, that kind of thing. It's just, that's there's a lot of things that go into why I do the things I do. I mean, my mother was I don't want to go so far as to say Nazi, but she was militant when it came to like discipline and clean house, discipline, routines, all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And my dad was no better because he's a retired Marine. So, my life was, and then of course I went in the service. So all that stuff gets reinforced. And so I have just decades of old habits that will never break. And I've been trying to push it on my kids. It's like, you work first, then you play.
Yep.
And then of course, as soon as they go upstairs to work, I turn on the Xbox.
Yep.
So
Speaking of playing, I love
Researching.
toys and I love games. And I noticed you brought up your Trek arcade game. I think that's awesome. We have an arcade game too. It's not Trekkie, but it's just something fun. So I wanted to know, when you do play your Trekkie game on your writer lazy days, what's your highest level you reached?
well, I see the beauty of it is mine. So I have all the high scores.
There you go. There you go.
And then, then of course I turn off the machine and it all wipes the memory. So it starts all over again. And
Oh,
I
no.
still have the high score guy.
That's a bummer.
But I have, my writing partner, my friend and my writing partner, Kevin, he has a Tron arcade game at his house. And then he recently bought one of those newer versions of the Star Wars arcade game that you get at Walmart or something, the $400 jazz thing where it's got, and so here we are, two mature adult men, and we spend Sunday afternoon playing this stupid arcade game like we're 15 years old again.
Right.
And praying to God that neither of our significant others find us.
So true.
But I mean, it's sort of a running joke. It's like, well, at least you have somebody to go play with. You can leave me alone.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the thing is, the difference is now that you're a mature man, we'll use the finger quotes, mature man with mature man money. And so now you can go back and buy those things, and it's,
Yeah. And my daughters like to play too. I mean, we still do, well, again, before the world ended, we would totally go to someplace like Dave and Buster's or an arcade that we had here in town, and they love the old school arcade games. So I would teach them. I'm like, I grew up in the arcades. I lost so many quarters to those things. I could probably have bought a house. And so, but the games that they have today make them look, there's just no comparison, compared to what kids are, or what we are having to play today. The arcades of my youth are just ridiculously primitive, but there's still something about them that's fun.
Still fun.
But yeah, we'll go, and the 3 or 4 of us will go play at an arcade, and I'm just like them. You know, we'll challenge each other the games. We'll play laser tag. We'll do whatever. Yeah, they've
Right.
killed me at laser tag. I'm getting old. So, there was a time when I would have bested them all, but those days are behind me.
We've all seen the classic Trek with Kirk and Trouble with Tribbles. Do Tribbles ever make their appearance again? And have we learned any more about their species? I mean, surely we must have learned something more about Tribbles, about that race recently in time.
If you're not paying attention to the new Star Trek shows that are on, there's Discovery and Picard and Lower Decks, but they also have this series called Short Treks, which are these little 8 to 15 minute vignettes. And one of them is called The Trouble with Edward. And it offers an heretofore unknown backstory about the Tribbles. It's worth checking out.
Okay.
Trouble with Edward.
Streaming on CBS All Access.
Edward.
All access. Yeah, we have that. So
Trouble with Edward. Gonna
can
be
look
my
that up.
next show. Got it.
Because I can figure out like what environment would they come up in where they wouldn't totally destroy? You know, it would have to be a unique.
Space.
Well, I mean, there was the DS9 Tribble episode that kind of used Trouble with Tribbles footage, and they offer some backstory about how the Klingons destroyed their planet or something at some point.
I was gonna wonder, do they age? Are they all gray now?
Yeah, great Tribbles.
I don't know if has their life cycle ever actually been chronicled? I don't know.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, do they transform into something else?
Might be fun.
Well, that's a thought that's going to fester. Okay.
Oh, yeah,
you go.
sorry.
When you write it, let us know.
Yeah, you do that.
Sounds like a great energy source to me, or something like that. Just shovel full of tribbles in the generator. You know.
There's a scene in The Trouble with Edward where they're trying to clean up their ship with tribbles, and there's a guy walking around with one of these giant, like it's almost like a giant backpack, and it's got a big tube that goes over his shoulder, and he's walking around, and you can hear the tribble go up the tube.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Because you're trying to pick. It's kind of funny. It's a great sight gag.
Yeah, I want to see that.
Trouble with
I have to
Edward.
look that one up.
We'll have to post that. It's great.
All right, now comes the time on our show where we have a little bit of fun. We play a game with our guest, and I hope you're up for this. What we did this time is we polled our 87,000 member Funny Science Fiction Facebook group with a couple of Star Trek questions, some fun ones. Now I gotta let you know our group is composed of sci-fi fans from all franchises, so some of these answers are a bit off.
Star Wars.
But
I like all kinds of science fiction. I like Star Wars, Doctor Who, Battlestar Galactica. I'm all over the map.
well, great. So these were all Star Trek questions. So how we're gonna do this is a little bit like Family Feud, but we've simplified it. You get 3 points if you pick the most popular answer, 2 points for the second most popular answer, and 1 point for the third most popular answer, and 0 if it's below that. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Now there's some prizes here. So this is, if you get 12 or more points, you get a autographed version of my book, Custodians of the Cosmos, which I neglected to put on my shelf, so we'll put up a picture, which is a little bit of a Star Trek parody that I wrote a few years ago that I had a lot of fun with. At 7 points, you'll get one of I gave to the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund mugs. And then 6 or less, you have the abject humiliation of failing the test. And of course, we threatened to put your head on a meme.
Okay.
Are you good with that?
Oh yeah, this can't possibly be worse than
You say that now.
Yeah. Where do you get your ideas? No. All right, let's go ahead and get started with Josh as the first question.
All right. This question is, which captain was most likely to shoot first?
Kirk.
So
Kirk.
Kirk was the number one answer at 335 members stating Kirk. There was your number one answer. That was 3 points on the board.
Yeah, second was Cisco at 25. Third, Jonathan Archer at 12. Janeway at 6. And a couple of people wrote Han Solo.
I was not one of them.
Well, if you thought
In that crossover that we haven't seen.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
that upcoming crossover, everybody's been.
Hey, if you did a crossover with Solo and Chewie, it would at least explain where the tribbles came from, because
Oh boy.
Gee.
They purr, you know, and
Alright.
Wookiees go. So maybe that's
They're just all hairballs. They're Wookiee
Yeah, exactly.
hairballs.
Pulling them out of the shower drains.
that's derogatory, Dayton.
That's gross.
Mm.
Okay, our next Star Trek poll. Which is your favorite alien race in the Star Trek universe? Now remember, this is their answer.
Right.
Their favorite race is.
Their favorite. I'll guess Klingons.
Yep,
3
you got it
points.
right.
Great.
You got
That's the
they-
number one answer.
Are we sharing our screens with him? Is that what's going on?
Oh, can you see our screen?
He
You
knows.
can see the reflections. I can see the answers reflected in your glasses.
There you go.
He knows who he's writing for. Vulcan came in number 2.
Very close second.
The Q came in third, and Tribbles ranked number 4.
Okay.
Alien
So,
race.
which race or group has the coolest starships?
Ooh, that's a good one. The coolest ship. I'm gonna guess Romulans just to see something different.
Romulans were third.
So it's 1 point.
Okay,
Yeah, so 1 point there.
that's
First
okay.
place
I'm
was-
off the humiliation scale. So
Yeah,
it's all
you get a mug.
You passed it.
You're on the
Great
mug
job.
list.
All right.
One for the
you
book.
What was the first one?
You get mugged. First place was Federation.
Oh, see, I
Second
figured
place.
That surprised me, actually.
Second place was Klingons. So third place was Romulan. Fourth was the Borg, because people just love cubes.
You're just a cube.
And in last place was the Time Lords.
Really?
Guys, the Time Lords.
Somebody
Okay.
wrote in Time Lords. Another
Again,
crossover.
another crossover we haven't
Yep.
done yet.
Yes.
Three people wrote in the Time Lords, Josh. Not one, three.
3.
So-
Oh my.
Oh, it says 5.
No,
5. It was 3% of
3%.
3%.
Oh, 3%. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
that was
Yeah, 5 people actually. Okay.
All right. So our next question, because I allowed people to add
Answers.
content and answers beyond what I wrote because I wasn't going to think of everything. So I asked what the best monster, and I have to say, including races from Star Trek, because a lot of people answered with the races that they considered monstrous. All right. So what is the best monster / race?
The best monster. It's probably going to be the Borg, but I'll guess Gorn.
Oh,
You want to reverse that?
Yeah.
It
Doesn't
was-
matter. I still come up with points either way, right?
You
So
got number 3, the Gorn. It was
Okay.
the Borg at 42. Tribbles were number 2, which blew me away. Then the
Is that a
Gorn.
monster?
Then the
Screw has a
Hornet.
Tribbles fed. That's not a monster.
I know.
I know that's. But
You'd
It's
have to
something
know
you
our
pick up
group.
with- That's something you pick up with a dustpan. That's not a monster.
Right.
there was a tie for third place. It was the Gorn, the Horta, and Spider Barclay.
Spider Barkley.
Spider
that is a
Okay,
scary one.
You know what? That person or those people should get, a high five because that's outside the box right there.
there you
That
go.
is. I
Yeah.
like that one.
All right, you ready for number 5?
Okay.
Who is the best engineer on Star Trek?
If it's not Montgomery Scott, this interview is over.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah, it was Montgomery Scott. 209 of the people. We just put the poll up like
Six- yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah,
So
69%.
yeah,
That's
Yeah, we
great.
put it up late
Jordy
last night, so-
LaForge came in second. Miles O'Brien came in third. 7 and 9 made the list, and Trip Tucker. So
Okay.
favorite in-
I might have flipped O'Brien and LaForge, but I don't know. That's just me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
got 11.
I like him because he's one of those roll your sleeves up, get your hands dirty kind of engineers.
He is cool.
Yeah. Well, Brian, I like to tell jokes about O'Brien because he's great material. Look at old redheaded engineer.
So I gave him 11 points.
Great, awesome.
Well
thank
done, you.
11. Okay.
Okay, that's good.
So you know what? I think you were close enough. I'm going to go ahead and
1 point off.
one of my books, anyways.
Great on a curve. All right.
Yeah, it's
It
not a
was
curve.
graded on
Yeah.
a curve.
I will gift him one of my points that I don't
There
have.
you go. Well, thank you so much. You've been a good sport and playing along with us, and that was a fun little bit there. Well, and we wanted to make sure we have our guests know where people can go to find all about you and your work and what you're currently promoting. So this is your opportunity to tell us about what's fun and exciting about Dayton Ward.
Well, you can find me on the web at DaytonWard.com, and from there you'll find links to Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and blog and all that other banality that I cast out amongst the interwebs. As far as promotion, yes, I did bring a couple of books to promote. The most recent release, it's called It Came from the Multiplex, and it's an anthology of 80s inspired horror stories where they all take place in and around movie theaters or are related to that sort of setting. Grew up in the 80s, you like movies like Return of the Living Dead and Fright Night and
the classic slashers.
Classic stuff, the funnier stuff, not the serious, not the hardcore slashers like Friday the 13th, but all the stories are inspired by those types of horror films from the 80s, which we all grew up with, and including some of the sillier ones like Trancers and Forbidden Zone and Critters. So that came out from a publisher. They're called Hex Publishers. They're out of Colorado, a very small press, but so they're having a hard, they have a hard challenge competing with the big New York City publishers. So give them a shout out.
Right.
And then, of course, my latest Star Trek novel is called Agents of Influence, and it's an original series tale set with Kirk and Spock in the 5-year mission. And I came out in June, so but I'm still going to
get that one.
Sweet.
Excellent. And of course, the Kirk Fu Manual.
And the Kirk Fu Manual, which came out literally as the apocalypse was descending upon us. It came out on March 15th.
Mr. Ward was kind enough to send along an autographed copy of the hilarious Star Trek Kirk Fu Manual, along with a poster for us to offer at auction to benefit the Wish Upon a Teen charity.
I didn't get a chance to promote it like I would have at conventions and stuff. So
yeah.
Somehow we got to get William Shatner to act all those back out, step by step.
Yeah, he's like 89, I think.
I still think he'd do it.
You know what? If you go to, I don't know if you all have heard about it, but there's the original series set tour that's up in Ticonderoga, where they have recreated the sets of the original show. Shatner comes out there a couple of times a year for special weekends, and he will absolutely demonstrate some of the moves and stuff with the people that are there. So you're
fantastic.
You're in engineering, and he's showing you how to take a punch and all that kind of stuff. It's really
that's awesome.
Kind of surreal.
We'll just close the tribbles.
There you go. All right. Well, wonderful. We'll put all that information in the description. Any photos you share with us, we'll pop into the video along with in our description as well. So everybody that's listening, thank you so much. Please don't forget to subscribe. By subscribing, you'll not only help us, but get the word out about our charity, Wish Upon a Teen, and the amazing work that they're doing as well. Once again, thank you so much for listening. And if the show wasn't to your liking, we guarantee to put 42 cents toward the research toward generating power from buttered cats. Lastly, please remember those listening while driving, yes, remember where you're going. We do need roads, and keep it under 88 miles per hour, even if you are driving the DeLorean. Thanks for listening, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.
It would be seriously unfortunate if we failed to mention the charity, the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund. We all know 11 minutes into episode 37, our dear red-shirted crew member will land on the planet Neural and be attacked and bitten by a venomous ape-like Mugato beast and die. It's good to know the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund will take care of his family.
And remember, that fictional charity for the Red Shirts Widows and Orphans Fund is connected to a very real charity now, and that is connected to the good folks over at Wish Upon a Teen. So any merchandise that you buy of the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund goes directly 100% to Wish Upon a Teen. And the good thing that those folks do is they help out kids who have extended stays in hospitals, and they help them to have a more comfortable stay. So let's help out our neighbors in a time of need and donate to Wish Upon a Teen, either by direct merchandise purchases or going to their website, www.wishuponateen.org, and making a direct donation through their website.